Imani, hello, Dr. Roche, which is Dr. Roche's first time here. So welcome,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. I'm excited because, money is one of the things that I love to talk about. I don't talk about it a lot on the channel, but everything, right, involves money. And
Mhm.
so when you think about your job, sometimes, you're just thinking about that paycheck. But tonight we're going to talk about all the other things that come along with how these jobs be messing with us. So before we get into that, I want to give you both an opportunity to introduce yourselves to the audience. And we'll start with Dr. Roche because it is her first time.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. I am Dr. Roche Brown. I am also known as the Doctor of Rethinking because I help people to remix their thinking so they can make money, they can manage their money, and they can multiply their money. So that's what I
Ooh.
like to do, try to help people out. I am a financial psychologist. I'm actually a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been doing the work since 2006. And about 8 years ago, I added the component of actually adding finance to it, recognizing that, when your finances aren't right, it'll mess up with your mental health, right? Cause
Mhm.
depression and anxiety, and so I was able to add them together. And one section of that is to help people around like leaving their toxic jobs, which is what I was able to help with Dr. Kamani.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Dr. Kamani is a friend of the channel and she has been on numerous occasions and always every time gives you your flowers for helping her have
Oh,
that epiphany that it was time for her to leave her toxic job.
Mhm.
So it is an honor to have you here.
oh, yes, thank you.
Yes, and Dr. Kimani.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, a toxic job survivor, but I love to say I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. I have a YouTube channel, Lifting Us We Climb Consulting Wellness Services, where I share with Black women about my healing journey from a toxic job. And I also share different resources in the form of Black women that I've interviewed over the course of 2.5 years about their healing journeys from toxic jobs, and I have other resources to help Black women successfully leave toxic jobs. So one of the things that we're offering now is a financial masterclass that I'm doing in collaboration with Dr. Roche. And Dr. Roche is the financial psychologist that I talk about so much, who helped me get my financial exit plan together. So I said, you know what? If she could help me, somebody who has some money issues, if she can help me, I want to help other Black women and provide this resource for other Black women as well, because so many of us have money issues and we think about money and bills and that keeping us from leaving toxic jobs. So I'm like, let's really address those fears and let's come up with a financial exit plan so more of us can liberate ourselves.
Yes, all of the above. um, so as we start to, you both said a lot, right? So let's start to unpack a little bit of this for the audience. And definitely for those of you who are watching, I dropped the link so you can register for the masterclass. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on in our chat. But it's so interesting thinking about, finances and money psychology. And
Mhm.
sometimes, and I'm not saying like it's an either or, but
Mhm.
oftentimes it's been my experience that either you love to talk about money or you have this relationship where you're just like, hey, me and money like this,
Mhm.
or it's this ostrich, like bury my head in the sand. I don't want to think
Mhm.
about it. It's
Mhm.
there, I don't have enough of it. I hope somebody else can help me fix it and manage it. But I'm curious is where do people build their money story? Because
Mhm.
it seems like there's like a thread or maybe a
Mhm.
current that's underneath all of those like two dichotomies.
Yeah. So money stories come from like two top things, money models and money memories. Right.
Mm.
And so like we look at like who was your model. Now
Mhm.
we recognize in the world that like people can teach us things directly or indirectly. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, we often just see people who are just modeling things to us. They're not budgeting, they're spending like crazy, they feel broke, they're stressing about money. So we kind of just pick up what's in our environment. right? So those models are like huge. But then we also may have positive models too. So I hate to only talk about negative things, right? So you might see somebody actually balancing a checkbook. And you're like, oh, what's that about, right? You may see somebody use their debit card and they told you, hey, you have to have money in order to use it, right? So that also taught you different things. However, we all are like, drawn to particular areas of like memories that will shape our patterns, right? So it could be like two different children who saw the same exact thing, but their memories are different about the experience. And so whatever memory that you like really like, you were attracted to may be what actually shapes you, over time. Right. And so we try to see, it might have been a financial trauma that may have happened. It may be that sense of just spending like crazy, whatever it is that you were attracted to, that you are now that person, right? From things that probably have happened prior to age 7, has now still impacted you. And a lot of times we never interrupt those patterns. Right. So nobody ever like, tells us like, hey, like you should stop doing this, or you should learn about credit, especially since there's a lack of financial literacy in, schools. It took me billions of years to get a doctorate degree, but nobody ever sat down and said, hey, this is what you do with your money once you start making it. Like nobody explains that part. Yeah. And so I believe that all of those things kind of shape us, and what we are, having with the financial masterclass is a way to interrupt those patterns, right? Like how do we interrupt that when somebody comes and sees me? Interrupt, right? We can't keep on doing the same thing and expecting something different. And so let's go ahead and learn something, the more tangible skills, practical skills on finances, but even understand the intangible things. Like what are the things that are the emotional barriers that's impacting our ability to practice some of the skills?
Yeah, that's so interesting because oftentimes when, you said it can go as early as 7, those earliest
Yes,
memories
right.
about, money stories, money habits, things like that, influences.
Yeah.
But then when you become an adult, a lot of times people will be like, well, I can't say anything. They might see you like
Yes.
driving that car off driving that money truck off the cliff, but they're like, oh, well, they grown,
Exactly.
I can't do nothing.
Right.
Wow, that is
Yeah. So nobody even
fascinating.
intervenes. They see us, they
Yeah,
witness our destruction, and they
exactly.
don't do anything about it. Definitely.
Exactly. Wow. So I'm trying to think of where I want to go. So when you think about like a toxic job, let's
Mhm.
pivot for a second. And it's for either of you ladies. When you think about like those early money stories, and then you get into the workplace where, you have your own money, you have things that you want to buy for yourself, or maybe those earlier influences from your childhood. Maybe you didn't have enough, when you were a child, you want to make up for it as an adult.
Mhm. Mhm.
Give your kids the things that you didn't have, or maybe you had all the things and you're just like, oh, well, it has to be more and more and more. And for Americans, it's very hard to say enough, right?
Mhm.
There's never enough money, there's never enough
Mhm.
time, there's never enough
Mhm.
things. And money, is part of that. So like, how do you think about making people aware when they're in a toxic workplace that that toxic workplace could be contributing, maybe exacerbating the behavior? Who knows? Just
Mhm.
curious.
Well, I think it's important to really identify what's keeping you at a toxic job. So many of us are in toxic jobs and we just kind of normalize it. All jobs are like that. No, all jobs are not like that. But many of us do have a lot of toxic job experiences because of racism and sexism as Black women. So it's important for us to recognize, number one, this job is toxic. Number two, what is keeping me at this job? And honestly look at what is keeping me at the job. When I thought about it, it was money. It was, how am I going to pay my
Mm,
bills? How am I going to replace my income? What am I going to do about my health insurance? What am I going to do about my retirement? So all those things kept me there, even though I knew the job was toxic, even though I knew the job was harming me. And then I had people
mhm.
around me who were saying things like, that's a really good job with those good benefits. You better
Um,
not leave that good job, the good benefits. What you going to do? You're going to end up homeless. So they're projecting their fears
mhm.
onto me. So I'm scared. They're projecting their fears onto me. And so that kept me in a very harmful environment for much longer. But it got
Wow.
to a certain point, Krishan, where I said, you know what? I don't want to keep living like this. This is
Mhm.
a miserable existence for me and for my family as well, because they could see what was happening to me. And I said, I want something different. So if the
Mhm.
money fears are what's the issue that's keeping me there, and let me say I was in therapy as well. So the therapist, my therapist, Black woman therapist, helped me identify it's the money. It's the money. Why don't you just go? It's the money. And so if
Mhm.
I said, okay, if the money is the biggest issue, then I need to get a handle on this. So all
Mhm.
the money avoidance, you talked about the ostrich. I was the ostrich, putting my money
Mhm.
in the dirt. I didn't know nothing about it. As long as I could pay my bills, I'm like, I'm okay. But I didn't know nothing about, I didn't know anything. And so I said, okay, I'm going to have to confront my fears, but I
Mhm.
don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. So then that's what I know about Dr. Roche. I knew she was a financial psychologist. So I said, I need to
Mhm.
work with her because I need an expert to help me walk through the steps. So I think the main thing for us as Black women is when we're in a toxic work environment, for us to identify what are all the things keeping you at that job. And if it's
Mm.
finances, and yet the fears of finances, then we need to inform, we need to get the resources, we need to empower ourselves so we don't continue to feel stuck because of
Mhm.
finances, right? Those golden handcuffs. I like this
Yeah.
paycheck. I like getting that paycheck the 5th of every month, right? Like I
Mhm.
like these bells and whistles, but what's the cost of all of
Mhm.
this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is there another place where you can replace the income? And it is. But again,
Mhm.
that's our mindset, the fear that this is the only place where I can make money, which is not true. So many
Mhm.
Mhm.
times as we're walking this journey, it's helpful for us to be in therapy because it brings up so many fears. It brings up things that maybe your family has told you about this job, or
Wow.
Mhm.
ways that your job might become part of your identity. And so you get a sense of
Mhm.
validation from your job. So you need to really address all those issues as you start the process of leaving a job, because it's not easy to leave a job. And what we
No.
really want to help model for Black women is that you can exit plan and successfully leave a toxic job and go to something else where you are replacing your income.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's the key because I think employers, I think they know that money, if you think of like a hierarchy, right? You'll
Hmm.
Mhm.
think about your position, what you get paid, and everything like that. But when you think about the ill effects, the negative effects that can happen with a toxic job,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
I experienced them, I had gastrointestinal things, sleep
Mhm.
disturbances,
Yes.
panic attacks, like all of
Yeah.
those things. But guess what? I was like, wow, this is the most money I've ever made.
Mhm.
I'm able to put, money away for my retirement and,
Hmm.
Mhm.
moving. Oh,
Hmm.
I work, 6 minutes away from my house.
Hmm.
I'm
Mhm.
able to get the kids from school. So the trade-offs, it's
Right.
like
Hmm.
you're making these mental trade-offs. And that's why I
Hmm.
Mhm.
think what you both are doing is so powerful,
Hmm.
because Black women need to know that you don't have to stay at a toxic job. And most importantly, that there is a community that can help shepherd you and show
Hmm.
you, like, hey, this is what's going on. This doesn't have to be the case. And look at what the financial, cost is
Mhm.
you're experiencing. But also, let's help you get an off ramp. Let's create an
Yeah.
exit strategy,
Yes.
financial exit strategy, so
Hmm.
that if the finances are what's keeping you here, when you're not
Hmm.
thinking about the growing medical bills that are piling
Mhm.
up because you're popping, Tums and all these other things just to
Right.
stay in the game,
Yeah.
right? You're not thinking
Yes.
about all of the trade-offs. These things are compounding in the background.
Hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so I think that's why, like, Black women especially, need this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's important for us to really look at the impact that the job is having on our lifespan. So looking at, are we
Mm,
developing, like you just talked about, like the
Mhm.
GI issues and high
Mhm.
blood pressure and the weight gain or the weight
Mhm.
loss or the sleep difficulties, the
Mhm.
physical, but also the psychological, the depression, the anxiety, the dread, the
Mhm.
trauma symptoms, maybe even suicidal thoughts. There's
yeah.
so many
Mhm.
different things that we can experience, and we have to think about, what is the cost of me being at this job? Yes,
Yeah.
it's scary to leave, but what are the costs of me continuing to stay here? Is it impacting the quantity, so the length of my life, but the quality of my life? Am I living every day, waking up in dread? Sundays come around, am I just horrified because of the Sunday scaries? So
Yeah.
really for us as Black women, just say, you know what? Maybe this is how I was brought up, that I was told I got to stay at a job, but I want a different life for myself. And I deserve better. And guess what? I can get something different. I have options. I don't have to stay at a job that's harming me. I don't have to.
Mhm.
Even I would say, just to add to that,
Yes,
like
please.
stress management,
Mhm.
right? Like how you're managing this stress is causing financial difficulties, right? So
True,
Mm.
it's more of
true.
that,
Yes,
overeating, right? Because
yes,
of like managing, forgetting to eat and then eating like poorly afterwards, right?
yes.
That's happening
Giving
because you're
yourself a
at this
treat.
stressful job, right? You
Yes.
drinking, needing a glass of wine, needing a couple cocktails, in order to manage these people. That
Hmm.
is called like that affects your money and your health,
And
right? So
Yeah.
retail
it's
therapy,
those
girl.
things, it's smoking, whatever it is that you're dealing with management. It could be retail
Mhm.
therapy,
Yes.
Yeah.
going to Target, going to Amazon, like all this stuff like that. So those are things that we also need to like look at that is in fact impacting your money. And it's just really
Hmm.
you trying to manage your stress,
Yes.
you
So
know?
keeping you stuck in an environment that's harming you longer
Yeah.
because you're doing these band-aid approaches, these short-term fixes. But if
Mm-hmm.
you don't look at the source of the problem, like why
Mhm.
am I doing this? Why am I overeating? Why am I
You're
doing
right.
this retail therapy? Why? Let's look at the source of it. Because if
Yeah.
you don't look at the source, you're going to keep doing the band-aid. And again, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to keep you in that environment for longer.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I have as Dr. Roche was speaking, I have two friends in particular that are still stateside, and one in particular cannot stand her job, like never
Uh-huh.
speaks well of it. The pay, the commute, the coworkers, it's always like, oh my gosh,
Yeah. Right.
but the retail therapy is
Mm-hmm.
constant. And so when we've spent, extended periods of time together, it was like this compulsion. We'd just be
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
walking somewhere and then it's a store and it's like squirrel.
Yeah. Right. Right.
and,
Right. Exactly. Yes.
and then it's like buying all this stuff and it's just like, oh, well, I'm buying for this. And it's just like, well, your kids are all grown and you don't have
Yeah.
any grandkids, and oh no, but my godmother's daughter's best
So,
friend's sister really
Wow.
yes.
likes cats, and so this
Yes.
cat figurine that's $25. It's only $25, right? Like
Right.
I can see the rationalization. I'm just like,
Exactly.
you don't really see that job that you
Yeah.
hate. You're
Right.
actually making it so that you and that job can stay
Right.
together.
Can stay
Right.
together. Huh?
Oh,
Right?
oh. And you know
That's
what else?
deep. Yeah.
You know what else, Krishan? It's times we do the retail therapy because we want to look really good. Like, oh, if I get another pair of
Mm-hmm.
shoes or da, like I'm gonna go in there, I'm just gonna look the part. I'm just gonna look. But
Right.
again, you're spending more money to be in
Mhm.
a toxic work environment where I guess you're trying to get more respect by how
Right.
good you look. But no, you're not gonna get more. In fact, you might get more backlash because they're looking at you like, oh, how is she able to look so good? Like, how is
Yeah.
she
Right.
able to dress so well? And that triggers their own insecurities
Mhm.
even more. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
think about when you're going to the work environment, there's a mask that many of us
Yeah.
put on as Black
Mhm.
women as we come to the work environment. As you put the mask on, is your attire part of the mask and trying to
Right.
outdress people and look just
Yes.
fabulous? You looking
Mm-hmm.
fabulous, okay? But you
Yeah.
down inside.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the nails done, the hair did, the eyelashes, the
Mm-hmm.
everything,
Yeah.
right? To
Looking fabulous.
the T.
To the
Yes,
And
T.
it's just
Yeah.
like,
looking
oh
fabulous.
And
well,
crumbling on the
this
inside.
Done.
exactly. And
Yes.
it's
Yes.
just like, oh my gosh. Like I just want to be like, wake when I see people like, and it's just so hard
Mhm,
to help people kind of like see the connection. It's like you are
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
literally continuing this whole, I don't know, like bad
Self-destruction.
tango, this bad dance with this job that
Right.
you can't
Mm-hmm.
stand. You
Yeah.
say you can't stand it. You say you want to get out, but you're doing things to harm yourself in the
Anymore.
process
True.
Right. Mm-hmm.
just to make it okay for you to go back on Monday. And
Mm-hmm.
then then you've already spent Friday's money.
Yeah,
Right?
it's like Groundhog Day. Remember that movie,
Now you
Groundhog
locked
Yes,
Day?
in for another
yes.
2 weeks.
Mhm.
Mm-mm.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
I've walked around, which is probably why I don't have many clothes here now. But wearing the same thing, and even here, I wear leggings and sweats. And most people that see me, I'm chilling. You won't know what's in that bank account. There's a lot of zeros, but I don't dress the part, right?
Right.
Right.
Because I
Because
remember
you
this was
live the part.
exactly
Oh, I
because
love that.
thank
Yes.
You
you.
know what I
I'm
mean?
like, I can buy whatever I want. And when I
Exactly.
do, I'm like, oh, I don't even think about it. Like I go
Yes.
buy, food or whatever. I'm not particularly looking to see how much it is, some things,
Hmm.
but it's just, I remember years ago, this was probably maybe 17 years ago or so. And I remember one of the books that changed my mindset about money. And then,
Mm.
just that open that window just a little
Yeah.
bit was Thomas Stanley's The Millionaire Next Door.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so transformational. And when he talked about like under accumulators of wealth and prodigious accumulators of wealth, and just how, the people that you think have a lot of money because they virtue signal and they're loud with the labels and,
Mm.
all of this, are
Hmm.
usually broke.
Right.
And the people that you probably, if you saw, I don't even know, well, probably not Jeff Bezos, but if you saw, what's the other one? Microsoft's guy.
Right.
Oh,
Gates?
oh my God.
Yeah,
Yes,
Bill
yes.
Oh,
Gates.
Bill
Bill
Gates.
Gates.
Oh.
Yes.
If you saw Bill Gates just walking around, which he most of the time looked busted.
But right. Wouldn't even know. Like he had
But
a dollar to his
he got
name.
some billions with that B,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So if he was standing next to you, if you weren't paying attention, he could be standing next to you in line getting some coffee and Starbucks. You wouldn't know the difference,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
but he is paid,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so when they talk about it in the book, like, the people that you think don't look like they have wealth are usually the people that are wealthy
Mm-hmm.
because new money is loud.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Old
Yeah.
money is
Mm-hmm.
quiet.
Uh-huh.
And so I was like, oh, I want to be old money.
Oh money. Yeah.
Yes.
Quiet and comfortable. Not worried about
Yes.
you.
Yeah, I want to be old money.
Yes.
So yeah, Opal said it's self-sabotaging because
Yes.
we don't think we deserve more.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Mm-hmm.
true. It's true. We
Yeah.
think that all jobs are toxic and you just have to
Mhm.
play the game, or might as well stay with the devil I know than the devil I don't know. So,
Mm-hmm.
I might as well just stick it out. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if any of these things ring true to you in this conversation as you're watching and listening to it, maybe it's a sign that you might be in a toxic job. So, we
Right.
talked about some of the manifestations of toxic workplaces, sleep
Mhm,
disturbances,
mhm,
things of that nature. I'm assuming anybody who's watching this probably can rattle off instances where they, experienced, microaggressions or actual aggressions or worse, in
Mm-hmm.
a toxic workplace. And so when you think about helping people create that exit ramp, what does the maybe like the building blocks, not to give it all away, but like
mhm,
what
Mm-hmm.
does that look like in some respects to help people realize like, okay, my job is toxic. I have this
mhm,
awareness
mhm,
and my goal is here to leave. How do
mhm,
I get this boat as
mhm,
close to the dock as possible so I
Mm-hmm.
can make the leap without falling into the water, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'll talk about the more in terms of like therapeutic, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Roche to talk about the financial part.
Mm-hmm.
But number one is the awareness that you're in a toxic job. So recognizing the ways that you've been lying to yourself that it's not that bad. Oh, I got this, or like that part. So that's what therapy is important for you to really
Mhm.
be honest about what's going on. And you might need to have someone that you can trust who's objective that you can reality test with. So when
Mm-hmm.
you're in a situation and your job is telling you, and you're like, wait, what? And they're gaslighting you. And then you might start self gaslighting yourself. But a therapist could say, girl, no, they're gaslighting you. Okay, now you're starting to internalize it. The other thing is you need to be in therapy to help you identify what are all the fears that you have about leaving. What are those fears coming from? And the therapist will still help encourage you to move forward despite the fears. So you're going to need that support. So once you work with Dr. Roche, you come to Financial Masterclass, you're still going to need support on the journey because it's a major life change. So you're going to need that support. And then when you get that support, so both and, as you're getting that support, also getting the resources that will help you. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Roche, for the rest.
Yeah. So I love this question because I feel like it was the question that we thought about as we were creating the Financial Masterclass.
Yes.
Okay. What are the different things? And it's like the building blocks, so we do actually go over like the identifying and confronting your fears, right? Like that's a step. From a financial perspective, we get a financial vision together, right? What would life look like? You know what I mean? If I was not at this job, allowing people to start being creative again and starting to see possibilities and dream again. Like, so we're doing all of that within the class, but we also giving the practical skill set, right? Because you actually need to know if you've never really managed your money and you've been that ostrich always avoiding, then we need to start to look at some stuff. Right. So we actually part of that homework is looking at the numbers, the scary part. I like to always say everybody hates math, but they love money. They go together, at least the addition part, right? Like
that's right.
Subtraction. You got to at least do the addition and subtraction part. That's what's important. So we got to get that together. Let's look at these numbers, right? Let's understand what is your survival number? What is the bare minimum that you would need in order to leave, right? We sometimes need to identify the numbers because if we don't identify them, they feel extra scary, right? Because we don't even know what they are, right? We just assume we need $1 million, even though we don't even make $1 million at our job, right? Like in order to leave. So we get scared about that. So we go through that. We look at, the fears of the benefits, so what do I do about benefits? Because that's a big deal. I mean, it's important. But as a self-employed person, what do you do? How do you take care of those benefits on your own, right? How do we maybe roll over your retirement? How do we understand life insurance? Is it going to go with us? Not going to go with us? Do we need to get our own? How do I understand how life insurance is important, right? So we go through those aspects. We also create the financial timeline, right? And that's probably the biggest, most important, exciting part, I think, is figuring out the timeline. So we people are on the continuum and they want to leave immediately. We tell you what to do then. Right. If you have a little bit more time inside of you, you can withstand it a little longer. We give you more of a 6-month plan. We give you that year plan, of how to do it. What should you do in order to move forward? So I think all of those different steps are really helpful, and become the building blocks to say, OK, I can really reach my goal. I know how to reach my goal, all the different steps. We make sure that everybody has a workbook. Right. Because who doesn't like something tangible? It just makes you feel happy. OK. I feel like I've done something when I've done some homework. Right. So just having the tangible workbook. So when you are ready to make that move, you can see your progress and you actually can take that with you too.
Yes. And ways to replace your income. So you might be thinking about, okay, how am I going to replace this income? This is some good money, or now I know what the bottom line is, but how am I going to replace my income? So we talk about different options to replace your income, whether you go into another job, you create your own business, you have side hustles, you have a combination of those things. But how do you replace your income? And when you actually have that tangible financial exit plan, you feel a little bit better. You feel like, okay. I was scared, but look, I can do this. And you're in a community with other Black women who are having a similar experience. And you're in an environment where you have 2 Black women, licensed clinical psychologists, supporting you through the process. And you're in an environment where your privacy is valued. So no one will be on camera besides me and Dr. Roche, because we know that as Black women, we want to keep our privacy. We don't want people know we try to leave a job. So it's Zoom webinar. Nobody will see you, that you're in the masterclass, and your name will not be listed anywhere. So, that privacy consideration is very important for us.
Yeah.
That's huge. And thank you both for having, the thought the thoughtfulness around that, because we talked a lot about in the beginning all of the fears
Yeah.
that we
Yes.
have. And so that is a huge one. If somebody's
Yeah.
listening to this, watching this, and thinking, oh, I want to do this, but oh my gosh, what if it's my, coworker sees me, or,
Right.
somebody recognizes my name or my handle or whatever.
Yeah.
The confidentiality piece is critical. So thank you
Mm-hmm.
for being so thoughtful around that.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I decided to leave my toxic job, and I think when, you think about life in America,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that they do to keep you employed, even though the job is killing you,
Right.
is health insurance, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes your retirement. So
Yeah.
literally your livelihood
Yes.
is in that job. So for me, one of the tipping points for moving abroad
Mm-hmm.
was that I could just buy private health insurance. It's affordable. And if I needed anything else, I can go to the public healthcare system, which is free. And so that was like, oh, I don't need to Cobra anything. I don't need to get a change, When I travel to the States for any length of time, I can just buy insurance for the time that I'm there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be done with it. But not
Yeah.
everybody, even though this is a channel for it, but not everybody wants to move abroad. Not everybody has that maybe in their, either long-term plan or the short-term plan. Maybe it's part of their long-term plan, but not in the near term. Even if you don't have that, you have options. And I think
Yes.
creating a financial off ramp to help you, get off of that toxic job treadmill is going to be critical, because we're about 30 days out from Darth Vader and his homies coming.
Boo hiss.
in the
Oh
Death
my
Star.
gosh. Boo hiss.
And you already know.
Yes. We need to get ready.
I
We
can
need
see
to get
what's about
We
to
ready.
really
happen,
do. Yeah.
Yes. We need to get
right?
ready. Let's get
Because it's
prepared.
like, oh, mass layoffs. Oh, wow, look, everybody that's sitting here look like me. Oh,
Interesting.
Right.
like, oh no, it
Right.
can't be that,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Right. And
So
sometimes
that's why even if you aren't in a toxic job and you're watching this,
get ready.
get ready.
Yes.
Sign up for the masterclass anyway, because
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you just heard Dr. Roche lay out the steps. And
Yes.
this is going to be critical, imperative
Mm-hmm.
in less than 10 days.
Yeah.
True.
You don't want
True.
For
this.
everybody.
For
I'm
everybody.
assuring
For
you.
No matter what
everybody.
job
You
you
don't
have,
want
no
this.
matter what your background, everybody. And the
Yes.
other thing too we cover in our financial masterclass is having multiple streams of income. So Krishan, you talk about a layoff, most people have one stream of income, that
Yeah.
job. So when it's a layoff, it's like that devastation. What am I going to do? So we talk about how to have multiple streams of income so you're never reliant on just that one source.
Right.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I had my first layoff, and one of the things I did was I had an emergency fund. After that, I was like, oh, you know what? I've been out here flying with
Right.
it. So I was like, okay, I got to have an emergency fund. And then, when I had the next layoff, I had, a $30,000 cushion, because I was like,
Wow.
oh, I could be out like close to 2 years, which it did take me 2 years to get another
Right.
job. And then of course had anxiety, but not
Yeah.
as much as if I had
Nothing.
none
Right.
and I had to go into deep debt, or, lose my house or anything like that. Like, I didn't have those worries. And so that's why it's really important for you to have that safety net. So
Yeah.
if you need to leave that job, or if that job decides that you are no longer their priority, that you don't lose everything.
Yeah, definitely. And people need to learn the skill set of saving, right? I can just say that, you make all this money, But a lot of times, like, we don't really know how to save. Like, we don't let money just sit there. Something about when money is sitting there, it feels like I need it, right? And I want to get it right away, right? Like, all of a sudden,
It's looking at you looking at it.
Exactly. Yeah. So it always happens. So it's like you have to build that habit, like start now, like as we have no idea what the world's going to come to in the next 30 days. So like starting now, right? With just building up the habit of like saving so you can end up having an emergency fund,
Yes.
and cutting back, right? Like it's part of life is going to be some sacrifice in your preparation stage, right? And getting used to that, sacrificing, not deciding to maybe eat out as much or whatever the case is, maybe not getting your hair done all the time, or maybe your nails not every 2 weeks, maybe every 3, like a little stretch, right?
Yeah.
Will give you some opportunity to put some money somewhere else because now you have a goal in mind, right? You know that maybe I don't want to be here anymore. So it makes it a lot easier to, have an emergency fund and to stack your coins,
Yeah. And then, just to build on that is to learn, once you have that skill of saving, and I think that's a critical, that's the
Yeah.
foundation, is then learning later to invest, right? Getting
Yeah.
that money to multiply.
Multiply.
Because
Yes.
I am not here because I saved. I am here because I invested.
Invested, right.
And I did without getting my hair done. I started doing it myself. I got my nails done yesterday. This is a new thing for me. When my kids will tell you, Ma, like if I need to dress up, obviously I'll pull it together.
You'll put it together.
Like, I wasn't the one that had a full set every 2-3 weeks. And then I was like, no, I did the math. I wasn't buying new cars every 2-3 years because I got so granular. I would think about the actual driving hour. I was like, well, I have this car. If I buy a car, I'm gonna have a car payment. And then I would look at the payment, the potential payment, and then I'm like, okay, well, how many hours in a week do I actually drive?
Yeah.
And then I broke it down to the driving hour, that payment, and divided by how many hours I was. Oh, that's not worth that. I'm gonna ride this sucker till the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
Right? But that's what I needed to do. That's how granular things got, because I had to change my mindset around money. And so I had to think about things like in a different way than I had before. So I know there was a question from Pamela. She said, I'm working on a steady second stream of income. My challenge is that the main energy zapping job takes so much time that it's hard to work on my 5 to 9 when my 9 to 5 bleeds into 5 to 9. Ooh, that's hard.
I would say that is hard. However, and this is where, like, when I think about toxic jobs, sometimes the environment itself is toxic, right? But then also us like not having boundaries is also toxic, and that's our responsibility. Right. And so you want to like look at, the job, even if you did like a little audit of like what's happening for the week, where is something that you could have said, I didn't need to do that. I don't need to do that. I should have held a boundary. Shouldn't have answered my phone at 5 o'clock. I shouldn't have done whatever those little things that you could possibly like get some of your energy back. Right. Is there even taking breaks? Like, am I not taking breaks? Like, they have to give me a break, but am I the one that's not taking one? So deciding, like, you have to ask yourself those questions and say, let me take that break. Let me go outside. Let me get some vitamin D. Just like something simple as that. Like, let me make sure I'm drinking enough water, moving my body. Those things will actually like increase your energy levels, that you can even consider like, hey, let me start to get this second stream of income, in a better position, right? Maybe you choose it's your Saturday or your Sunday and you say like, I'm really going to focus time on the second stream of income. Because it has to be focused time. That's the only way that, businesses work, if you just kind of like haphazardly just doing it, it's probably not going to work so well. So you won't see the result. But if you can even have like, a Saturday afternoon or whatever, get your rest first, but maybe a Saturday afternoon that you say, I'm focusing on this business in order to like kind of grow. I think that is like some of the things to kind of think about, with this, 9 to 5, and then maybe you need to take a leave. I don't know, but let's get something together first.
Yeah.
So we know what you're going to do with all that free time, because an abundance of time does not mean more productivity. And that's what I think people assume. Like if I just didn't have this job, then I would be able to have my business. Not necessarily. So you have to like know how to structure your time, because you can have an abundance of time and be watching Netflix and chilling with yourself, okay? And not doing a thing, right? Like, so we gotta like learn the productivity skills, because we'll work for somebody else more than we'll work for ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
so you want to make sure you figure that out first.
That part. I just want to add a few things what you just said. Number one, about the boundaries is recognizing, do your job in terms of what the job duties are, whatever, right? Don't go up and up and up and up, but above. For what?
Yes.
Right? Because more than likely they're not going to give you the attention you want anyway. Okay.
Mhm.
So do what you need to do, but don't do up and up and up above. Have your own personal boundaries. So if they contact you after work hours, don't respond. Don't, we might feel compelled, like I need to finish this so my work day is easier tomorrow. No, don't do that. Okay. The other thing is we have to recognize when we need rest. As Black women, we often say, I don't got time to rest. I'm gonna rest when I'm dead. No.
Yeah, please don't do that.
Okay?
Because that's a long rest.
We need to
It's a long
have and
rest.
be intentional about taking a rest, whatever that looks like. The other part, which I want to just highlight, if you're able to take a leave of absence from that toxic job, please do so. I did it. It was a game changer. We're going to talk about that in the financial masterclass too. What your options are in relation to a leave, because when you get some space away from that place, you get clarity, you can rest, you can really jumpstart that exit plan, you can work on your other business. So if you're able to take a leave, that's strongly suggested that you look into that.
Yes.
Yes, read your employee handbook. That thing that they gave you on the first day that you probably tucked in your drawer or is at home somewhere collecting dust. Like, read it. Make sure you have the most recent version, because that lays out like what you've agreed to as an employee. And most people are employed at will in the United States. But you have what the employer is providing in terms of benefits, in terms of their responsibilities to you, your rights, etc. So you might have like a sabbatical that could be paid. You don't know what options there are, right? It could be you being a caregiver to someone. There's caregiver leave. There's so many different variations. You have to take control over it. And I know that can seem like a big ask when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling depressed, when you're feeling all of the things. It feels like just one more thing, but this could be that one more thing that allows you to finally breathe, that allows you to finally rest and recover, because the effects of a toxic job can last for years.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I'm still healing. I left about 2.5 years ago. I'm still healing. The journey continues, right? But it's less intense. The symptoms I have way less intense, but I'm still healing. So I think it's important for us to also recognize it's a process too.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm definitely on the healing journey, right, as well. And it allows you to think about how you would do things differently, because I have young children well, not young, but they're young adults, who are going into the workplace, and just arming them, equipping them with, how do you speak up for yourself? How do you build boundaries so that you're not that person who, sometimes we tell ourselves these stories, like, if I'm not accessible after 5, they're not going to think I'm committed. Or, I know so-and-so is getting ready to retire. If I do this, then I'll be the one that they pick for the promotion. You are telling yourself a story, because they might have decided that they don't want anybody from their current pool, that they want to go outside for a fresh perspective. They might do something. There's a myriad of things, but you are self-gaslighting to get yourself back in the ring. And unbeknownst to you, you just might be the person that they're like, oh, that's old reliable, but I can never see them moving up, because they don't have leadership qualities, because a leader is going to say, hey, I can't do that right now. I have a priority. But you're being the, yes, give me all the things. oh, look, it's breaking my back, but I got it. I got it. I'm
Right.
good. I'm good.
Right.
And it's killing you. Those are the people that never move up.
Yeah, so true.
Mm-mm.
And I'm so glad you
Exactly.
talked about your children because I think it's important for us as mothers to also think about what is the example, what are we modeling for our kids?
Mm-hmm.
Because our kids are seeing us harmed at these toxic jobs. They see us being broken down. They see us being exhausted. They see that we're not fully present when we get home. So, what are we modeling? Are we modeling to them, you stay in abusive, toxic situations because you have no options and you just stay and stick it out? No,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want my kids to think that way. I
Right.
want them to see me and say, oh, mom, got knocked down, but guess what? She got up and she
Mm-hmm.
made it out of there. And
Mm-hmm.
I want them to see that. I don't ever want my kids to think it's okay to stay anywhere where they're being harmed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Pamela said, I definitely need leave of absence from this job, but I want a permanent leave of absence. Well, then you're a perfect person for this
You're preparing,
masterclass.
girl.
Right.
You're getting ready.
We'll
Yes.
see you soon, Pamela.
We want that
We'll
for
see
you.
you,
We
we'll see you
want
next
that
month.
for you. We want that for you.
Yes.
Yes. Wow. So when does I know we've been talking about the masterclass, but when does it actually take place?
Dr.
So
Shea.
it's going to be January 8th and 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And now we always have to remember all the
The
things.
time zone.
You go, Dr. Kamani.
Yes.
Well,
So it's 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time.
there we go.
Yeah. So you're covered.
The time. We like have to remember everywhere.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's
And
right.
Dr. Roche, can you give a breakdown of what the masterclass, the different aspects of it?
Oh yes, definitely. So it's going to be 2 days. It's going to be an hour and a half, pretty much both days. So 45 minutes. Dr. Kamani does the other 45 minutes that I will take over. And we have those different building blocks that we talked about. So we have the identifying of the like fears, we have the vision, we have the practical understanding around finances, understanding how taxes work, how inflation is impacting us, our retirement aspects, the benefits is going to be part of that. And then of course that financial timeline, multiple streams of income. So we have all of those areas that are like split up throughout those 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you have the workbook to continue on, and you also get the replay. And then you get a nice little bonus. Let me tell you, you'll get that one-on-one with me. Yes.
Oh, what?
So there's a bonus after you complete the financial masterclass, because you're more informed, you're more educated after that, then we're able to utilize our time, in a better way, so you know exactly what you still need help with to get the more individualized, plan for what's going on for you and your particular job circumstance as well.
Yes. And I want
That
to say
is
too,
huge.
it's amazing that the financial masterclass shares so much information, but it's also fun. We have
Yeah.
fun, we laugh, we dance, we have a good time. It's not just, oh my God, this is gloom and doom. You're going to get so much information that you'll be leaving with a financial exit plan. You'll be
Yes.
so informed after you leave, and you'll be in a community again of Black women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that to build on that, I think it's a sense of empowerment,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things that you can feel when you're in a toxic workplace is powerless.
Oh,
Like
yes.
I
Mm-hmm.
can't change, what's going on. I may like the job, I don't like the manager.
Right.
This is all I know how to do. I went to school for this, and you think that this is
Mm-hmm.
the only thing, or as good as it gets.
Yes.
And that's again stories. And so being in
Mm-hmm.
a community and having, for those of you who are watching this, right, these two doctors shepherd you through the steps and
Mm-hmm.
help you to see, well, am I, thinking something? Am I talking myself into this job? Am I talking myself in the same, or maybe am I also participating in things that are detrimental to my livelihood? Over shopping, drinking, overeating, doing all these things, snapping at my family, like what are the things how am I showing up, and how
Yeah.
am I harming myself in the process? And what you said earlier, Kivani, is about how am I modeling for those of you who have children?
Mhm.
What am I teaching them? I
Yeah.
might not be saying this, but what are my
Right.
actions? I might be saying I hate that job, but then, there's a disconnect between what I'm saying about it and what I'm doing.
Right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we talked about these like money lessons and things like that can be instilled and influenced as early as 7.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you think about what you're modeling to your children, well, you're just teaching them and having another generation.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, my kids have been on bad jobs. I'm like, oh no, get out. It's a bad job. I'm not gonna be that
Yes.
mom.
Leave quickly.
Girl.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
not
Get
gonna be that.
out.
Oh, that's a good job. No, that's a bad job.
Yes.
Yes.
They suck. Do
Absolutely.
I have to come down there? Like,
Right.
like I am not gonna be that one because they know I'm the one that like my daughter was like, oh, I was thinking about doing this thing in Australia. I'm like, oh, we going to Australia? Like, I'm not gonna be that mom that's like, oh, that's too far. You want to leave? Get on a plane. You want to
Yes.
quit that job? Quit that job. Right?
Right.
That's how you change your
But
family
you feel
tree.
free.
Yes.
Yeah. And not bounded.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
We
It's like,
need to be liberated.
yes, like you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about like the generational transmission of trauma. So are we
Mhm.
teaching our kids to continue in trauma responses?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Or the hope is that we're supporting generational healing. So
Yeah.
I feel like with my kids, like it's a shift, right? So
Mhm.
I'm showing them by example that no, you don't stay anywhere where you're being harmed. You find ways to verbalize, but then you also recognize when it's time to go.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. Absolutely. Willing to fail said, my job locked me out during a tornado warning. What?
Whoa.
I had no place to go except to wait it out in the parking
Oh
lot.
my gosh.
Wow.
Ooh.
Oh my
Look,
goodness.
And
I
that's showing
can't
you,
say
right? Oh my
it,
gosh.
it was,
That's
and I'm so
horrible.
sorry that
That's
happened to
horrible.
you. And
Yeah.
I saw, forgot
Mm.
which name storm it was recently in the US, but there was a facility where several people unfortunately died during a hurricane because the employer kept them there and did not allow them to leave, even though they were doing, the emergency mass evacuations.
Right. Oh
Oh
wow.
my
And they did
God.
say it was okay to leave. Roads were
Mm-mm.
already washed out, people
Oh
were
my
already
goodness.
drowning. And
Oh,
so when I read that, like
That's so
it's
scary.
unfortunately
that's
it's
sad.
a behavior that I think is just born out of a toxic country.
Mm-hmm.
And the people don't have worker protections,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like they do in Europe. That whole 5 to 9, 9 to 5, like 5 o'clock comes or whatever your end time is, that's a wrap.
Yeah. Yes. Right.
Because these people go on strike in a minute.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
I was
Wow.
watching the news this morning and it was like, oh, the garbage people are going on strike the day after Christmas for 2 days. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, day before yesterday, it was the Metro. They were on strike for a couple of hours. Like these people, they don't need a reason to strike.
Right.
But it's the checks and balances, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't have a system of checks and balances in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The employer holds a lot of cards,
Yeah.
and employees no longer feel like it's a relationship, right? There's clearly a distinction between the two.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And, in addition to money, sometimes it's reputation.
Yeah.
And so these are all of the things that are the confluence of things that are building in the back. But I, can attest from my own personal experience,
Mm.
there is a way forward.
Yeah.
Having a
Mm-hmm.
money plan is
Yes.
your way forward. Unpacking
Hmm.
the stories that you've either told yourself, the learned
Mm-hmm.
behaviors, all of those things are inputs, but you have to have somebody who can help deconstruct that for
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
you so that you can start to rebuild
Hmm.
and build a path to that next, whether it be a job or that next chapter of your life.
Hmm.
Yes.
True. True. You might feel like you're
Mm-hmm.
in a black hole. Sometimes people feel like
Mm,
it's so bad. Like it's so bad, I don't even know where to start. Well, if you're in that
mhm,
situation, you need somebody to kind of reach out to you and say, okay, this is how you get out the hole. that it's
Mhm.
possible to get out. And the other part, Krishan, when you were talking, I was thinking about in other countries, what I'm hearing is, a job is seen, as Stephanie Perry says, a way to make money. That's it.
Yes.
It's not your whole life. It's not your
Mhm.
identity. But in America, many times jobs almost seem like they own us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like given so much time, not to think about so many people who died at the job,
Yeah.
and either their job didn't know about it till days later, and it just kept going on. And it's just
Mhm.
like, how many examples do we see of that, of how
Mhm.
expendable we are, but yet
Mhm.
we still turn our lives over to jobs that really don't care about us.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
just another widget. That's
Right.
all it is. And unfortunately, going back to Darth Vader's return, he's equipping himself with a bunch of yes people
Yeah.
who
Mhm.
are, billionaires in their own
Mhm.
right,
Mhm.
and who in the companies that they own
Mhm.
are poor examples of how you treat people. They've
Yeah.
had multiple
Mhm.
lawsuits, discrimination, you name it,
Mhm.
have said, oh, return to work, like all of the things, do union busting, all of the things,
Mhm.
right? And so I just want people to start to connect the dots and
Mhm.
do what you can now to
Yeah.
equip yourself, to empower yourself so that
Mhm.
if that thing happens, right? If
Mhm.
you get laid off, if
Mhm.
you decide you cannot stand this job anymore, that you
Mhm.
can
Mhm.
look and say, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I'm ready.
Yeah.
It's a very different energy because then it's just like, it's not like, oh, they say one more thing, they say one more, I'm good. Like,
Mhm.
right, I'm out the door, right? Like
Right.
you won't see me anymore. That's a
Yeah.
whole different energy.
It
It's
sure is.
like in the back of your mind, oh, you doing that? It's okay.
Mhm.
I got
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
you, right?
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
different than somebody doing something to you you don't like, and you're just like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what am I gonna
Or
do?
you spend
Right?
all day, right? So
Mhm.
that thing happens. You spend all evening talking about it,
Mhm.
to everybody about what
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
and trying to
Right.
strategize, and you can't
Mhm.
sleep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like your
Yeah.
friends and family mad. Like,
Woo!
we hate the job. Leave. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
Please
all we
leave.
hear about is this job.
Right.
They
Just
have
take a
all the
We,
people
collection.
we
sleeping
hate
in
to
the
see you
job.
coming because we know you're gonna talk about this job. Like it's just
Exactly.
taking over everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, and that's the thing. It's like, when you can equip yourself financially, you give
Mhm.
yourself options. If
Yes.
Mhm.
you need to
Options.
leave, if whatever the case is, you something happens in your family, they don't want to give you time off. Well, I'll take it unpaid because I know I have this money, right?
Right.
That's what having an
Exactly.
emergency fund is for.
Or
Yeah.
Right?
mhm.
It's I forgot back in the day where they used to have like the do not break glass, right? Except for in case of emergency, right?
Emergency? Yes, that's what
That's what that is, right? Then it's
Yeah.
yeah.
time to break the glass, right? That's what
Yes.
that's for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so
And don't
funny.
and
Yeah.
let us not push ourselves to the emergency. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
It
Like
shouldn't be.
we will like be on fumes, just like, oh, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, to the point where we might get really, really, really sick.
Mhm.
And research
Mm,
is showing that as Black women, that we're dying at earlier ages, we're developing
yeah.
cardiovascular disease earlier
Yeah.
because of issues of racism, sexism, toxic
Mhm.
jobs. So we need
Mhm.
to be mindful of that, that we have seen examples of high profile Black women who have
Yeah.
Yeah.
died, right? Physical things, but
Mhm.
we've also seen with Dr. Antoinette Bonnie Candia Bailey in terms of suicidal behavior. So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
very serious. So don't just discount it or lie to yourself. You need to really pause. If you recognize you are experiencing physical and psychological symptoms, you need to really pause and pay attention to that. That's serious.
You
Yeah.
must. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you know what? If you take yourself out of the equation, no one's life is going to be the same. And
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
so that is not a story that you should be telling yourself. If you
Yeah.
Mhm.
are, there are resources available,
Hmm.
because, life is better with you in it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. 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 We deserve better.
Mhm.
Yes, that part. And
Right.
look, I used to be, and I proudly say used to be
Yeah.
the Miss Independent. Oh, I got this. I gotta
A
be
superwoman. I got this.
superwoman.
Mhm.
What? Had the S on my chest.
Cape.
Mhm.
Yes.
Now I'm like, the S is soft. Soft life.
So
What?
Oh,
soft
okay.
life,
I
soft
like that.
life.
I'm putting that too. Yes. And a
I done
cape,
seen the light.
put it to the side. No, we have put a cape to the side. And I think that this election has shown us as Black women that we really
Mhm.
have to prioritize ourselves because nobody else is doing it. We have to look out for ourselves because nobody else. So we have to
Mhm.
Mhm.
prepare and get our and stop trying to save everybody else. We got to save ourselves.
Mhm.
Yes. Let me tell you, if there's anything that Black women should stop doing right now is stop trying to save the world.
No,
Mhm.
Stop giving game to them other people.
nope,
Yes.
Right?
nope,
It's time to
Say
start
your
locking
family, your
stuff
community.
down.
yes,
Not everybody gets invited to the cookout.
no,
Like,
Right.
mm-mm,
no.
no, no. We need to
Yeah.
change things. I know, Pinky. Wait, no, here we go, Pinky. I started early. It wasn't that you were
Oh,
late. I
like
started
how late am
early
I?
because my guests are on the West Coast and I'm in Europe. So you were not late. You are right on time.
That's funny.
Awesome. Well, if there are no more questions, we'll give the people their time, but also let's give them one more opportunity to hear about the masterclass, the dates, and how to register. So you said
Okay.
it's in January 8th and
Yeah.
9th?
Yes,
January 8th and 9th. The registration link I know is in the chat. So we
Got this.
will be at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Central, and
yes,
7 p.m. Eastern Standard
yes,
Time.
yes.
It'll be 2 days, only an hour and a half both days. As well as you'll have the replay if you're unable to make it for like one of the days, you can check out the replay. And you get that workbook to go along with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And we get the
and
30 minutes
everything's
extra time with
confidential,
you.
so you don't have to worry about being on screen or having your name up
Exactly,
there. You will only see Dr. Roche and Dr. Kimani, so
exactly.
your privacy is going to be respected.
Yes,
You don't have that to worry about.
yes. So Zoom webinar. And Dr. Roche, can you speak of two things? One, the extra
Mhm.
time that they get with you, and the difference between an investment and an expense, right? This is an
Mm,
investment.
Yes. I
thank
know,
you for
like,
that.
so oftentimes we see something, the cost of something, and we think of it as an expense, right? And some things are expenses, right? Like maybe those shoes or those eyelashes, that's an expense. However, this is an investment. And so when we think about an investment is something that is going to produce a return.
Mhm.
Right. And so when you think about of course, the return of all the money that's going to be saved and like also the peace of mind that you're going to get, that's what you're going to get by coming to the financial masterclass. Right. So there's this one fee that's going to end up, going 100-fold because of you just choosing to invest in yourself. Right. So that is extremely important. But then, of
Mhm.
course, okay, a one-on-one with me is already a $500 value anyway, but you're going to get that as well as part of the course, but you'll have an informed time with me because you have gone through the actual course. Now you'll be able to ask me questions that make sense.
Yes, perfect.
Love it.
Yes.
Love it. So yeah, ladies, and the link is there. If you are experiencing any of the effects of a toxic workplace, this is your way forward. Or if you know someone who is experiencing that and you want to give them a resource or you want to gift them. Look, we're in the holiday season. So if you are feeling benevolent and you want to help somebody who you know is potentially in crisis, give them the gift of liberation,
Oh, yes.
right?
I love that. Mm-hmm.
So there's a link. I will. It's already in the description of this video. With that, I want to thank Dr. Roche and Dr. Humani for giving your time, your energy for this awesome discussion. It's a situation that is critical right now because of where we are, in the world and then what's about to happen in the next 30 days. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thank you both for putting this masterclass together. I know that it will be so transformative to the women that participate. and the influences on generations to come. So thank you both for that.
Thank you, Krishan. Thank you so much. You're on
Yes,
mute,
thank.
Stephanie.
Oh, there. Yeah, you're on mute. There you go.
I was saying, thank you for having us, Krishan.
My pleasure. And so now you are a friend of the channel too. So you
Yes.
are welcome here at any time. I loved it.
Thank
I
you so
loved
much.
it. All right, y'all. Thanks for rocking with us an hour early. And I will be back next Thursday. So until then, be safe and be well. Ciao,
Bye,
ciao.
everyone.